Hello and welcome to this Project Inbox video tour. In this session we're going to be looking at working with emails and notifications. Okay, so here we are within the software application, and we can interact with emails and notifications in a number of ways. Notifications are going to be sent to us automatically by the system to tell us or remind us about something. But emails are a little bit more interactive and prompted by us. We can work with emails by storing email content in our documentation, and we can also use emails as a way of transferring files and information and asking people to work on things on our behalf. So let's firstly have a look at adding emails to our project as a way of documenting the project and providing evidence. So our project process and document structure is something we've looked at a lot in some of the other videos, in particular the documents and processes tour. So you'll be familiar with the idea of documents here and files within them. Documents can be provided empty for things that we want to collect as we progress through, and classic examples of that might be things like acceptance records. Or we can see here we've already got some evidence in our acceptance record, and in this case it is an email. And adding emails is very straightforward. We've got all we need to do is drag and drop that from our Outlook. So here's my Outlook, here is my document area. I can decide the area I want to put the email into, and I can just drag the thing out of my inbox or one of my folders in Outlook over onto the application, and it will bring the email and everything associated with it, everything in that one record. So it might be a chain of messages, there might be some attachments, etc. So I just simply grab that, drag it and drop it onto the add file for the document I'm interested in. So in this case it's the PID. And that's going to link me through to the add file form. So here we are. I can then rename that if I want to, give it a more relevant name to where it's going in the project, give it a description if I want to, or just press OK and it will bring that straight in. We can see that's now updated here, and I can see my email message. And if I open that file from there now, it's essentially opening everything that was in the Outlook message, but it's now opening it from our server. It opens in Outlook because it's an Outlook file type. And we can see the attached file and the message and who it came from and the time and date and all those things that make this very useful for appointments and documenting decisions, etc., because it gets that into the system in a very recorded way. And once we've got this email here and I open it, of course I could choose to forward it or send it on to somebody else if I wanted to. So adding content in, really very straightforward. If we want to share some content that we have in the project with other people, well, we can do that as well, and we can do that in one of two ways. We can either, very much like when we're working on content ourselves, we can either view that, so send them a copy, or we can send them a checkout, as we might check out things ourselves that we actually expect people to change and return back to us for putting back in as new versions. So that's a pretty straightforward activity. If I just want to send a copy of the current version of the file, I can come into the current version of the file area and pick up this, email this file, just the envelope icon, and that's going to send a copy of this file to somebody. If I use the envelope here, we'll see that it's going to send a copy of all the files in the document, because we're in the document area. So we can choose, and in fact the same button does all the same actions here in terms of choosing who we want to send it to. Now we can completely miss this bit out if we want to and choose the addresses from our Outlook address book, but here I'm going to select potentially a couple of people from the project team list, and that's what that's automatically populated with. The pick option allows us to select some other groups if we wanted to, and then I can choose what sort of message I want to send. Email is the default, but I can also send an appointment or a task from here, and I can then compose it in Outlook. And as that composes, it then has attached, because it's the document we've sent it from, the latest available version of each of those files, whatever that version might be. If the file had already been checked out and was being worked on by somebody else, it would tell me that as well here, just so that the person receiving it knows that they are seeing something that will shortly be changing. So we can pick up, we can add any extra email addresses we want on from here. Really, we've just shortcutted the process of creating the Outlook message. You would otherwise have had to drag all the relevant files off and put them in the right place, etc. Correct the file, get the right email addresses and note down what you were attaching. But here it's done that for us. We can make the changes we want to, and we can send that out to the recipients if we want to do that. So pretty straightforward thing to do. We have exactly the same sort of process if we want to check something out to email to send to somebody. Now obviously this button only exists for the current version of the file and only exists when the file is available for checkout, because it must be available for checkout for us to be able to check it out to email. So exactly the same sort of process happens. Perhaps here I'm not going to choose somebody from that list. I'm going to create it as an email again, and when I complete this action here, it checks the file out at that point, because as soon as I create the email message, I really need to have that file secured so that nobody else checks it out and breaks my process midway through. Now it's created an email message here. I could now put a recipient on here if I wanted to, and send it off to them, and it gives us some basic instructions about what we want them to do. Return the file to the user, please don't change the file name. We've put these codes in here which make it very easy for us to pick up programmatically the email when it's returned. So the email is going to go to somebody, they're going to reply to the message with a new version of the file with their changes in it. Here they have a place where they can, if they want to, put their description that they would like to propose onto the file addition when it goes back into the system. What I'm going to do, rather than sending it and receiving it, is just simply save it into my drafts. It feels like the same process, like it's just come back in again, and I'm going to come back and look at my draft items here. And what I would do when I get this email returned from somebody with the new comment in and the revised file attached is I can drag that in as a check back in process. Now I don't want to drag it to here because that's going to put it in as an entirely new piece of content. What I'm doing when I'm returning from email is I drag to here the email return, and you'll see this currently has a count of 7 on it because there must be 7 emails I've got in here pending check back in which have been returned in exactly this way from emails. And as I release that and it goes through and checks the content of the message, it now goes to 8 as a count because it's worked out that from the code in the email that was an attachment of a file that looked right, had the right name, etc. on it, or a close enough name, and it was in the right structure for one that it was expecting me to have to check back in. Because this file here isn't, although it's checked out to me, it's not actually, I don't have it in my checkout folder because we'd have 2 copies of it then. So the original is on the email, it's now in my email returns folder, and when I'm ready I can come back into here and I can pick this up. Now it will show me any that are relevant for this particular project. So the other 7 must have been checked out on other projects I was working for. When I'm in those projects and I go back into my emails, I'll be able to do that, or I can jump projects at this point here. But what I can do is have a look at the file. Obviously we want to make sure that the changes somebody has made are we're happy with, and I can read their description, etc. And when I'm ready to, I can then use this to check that back in. I can use their description if I want to, or I could delete it and add my own, or add my own on the end. That check-in is now completed, and we now see that new description is here, that I'm down as the user who did the checkout and check-in because I'm owning it. Often we're doing this to send it to somebody who's a supplier or a customer, somebody who doesn't necessarily have their own direct access to the system, such that they could check out and check in themselves under permissions, but we're sending them the content instead. So in emails, we can either take the email and add it as a piece of file, as a piece of evidence in its own right, and that's a very popular thing to do. We can use email to send things to people for information purposes, and we can use email to send things to people that we want to change and return back to us. And again, we have a simple process for doing all that. So that's pretty straightforward. If you don't use Outlook, then the same things are possible. We use what we call an Smtp Send instead, where we form up the email with attached files, etc., send it from our server, and it returns a copy of that to your email address. So you don't have it in your sent folder from Outlook, but you get it into your inbox, whatever we send on your behalf. And in fact, when we use it from the browser, that's the standard way of doing emails. It uses the Smtp Send, and we'll have a little look at that at the end. But now I wanted to talk a little bit about notifications. Now I have a couple of notifications that are sat in my inbox here. And we do notifications around two things. You can either do notifications about documents, or you can do notifications around project controls, tasks, risks and issues. So here's a notification I've received around a document. So there's a notification rule running, I can see here, on the project mandate, and what it's doing is it's telling me anytime somebody puts something new into the project mandate document. It might be a check-in of an existing file, it might be the addition of a new file, but it's going to tell me about that. It's also going to tell me about any approval status changes to content within that document. So it keeps me updated to changes within that document area because it's a document I'm interested in. And what it tells me in this message is which file, who it was who made the change, what sort of change, was it a new file or check-in of an existing one, what versioning, which process were they operating in when they did that, did they leave a comment, and did they do a baseline or approval of that. And then it also includes a link. So from my email I can directly go and see that file. I can do that in two ways. I can either here, as I have done, view the file directly, in which case it's going away to get that for me. And the fact that Project in Box works over web services means that if you've got internet access to get your emails and your server is available over the same internet, you can follow these links straight from an email to see the latest available copy of a particular file or change that you're interested in. It will take you straight to that, and here we are, straight to the latest version of that particular file. The other link here allows me to go in and see the context of that. So it's going to take me to the browser application, and it's going to show me the document and the file that somebody was working on, and then I can see the context, the history to that, who else have made changes. I could then from here choose to do things like forwarding by email in the way that we were just talking about a minute ago. So I can choose who I want to send it to. So this is instead of using Outlook, of course. I can pick the person from here. We've got my from address, which is what it's going to send my copy to. I can type in my notes about what I want them to do with this particular document, and I can then, I've got the attachments there automatically, and it'll just send it on my behalf. So really straightforward to do that. But these links on notifications just connect you straight back into what's going on with the project. And it's a really good way of keeping people engaged. So when you're setting up these notifications, and if we come and look at this particular one that's running here, so it was the project mandate, and here's the notification link. Only people with a high permission can set notifications running. And the normal sort of notification is this, on check-in. Please tell me about any changes or new status information for this document and its contents. And it normally just comes to you, the person that set it up. So as the project manager, you're kept in touch with what's going on. But here, in advanced, you can set other recipients. And that's very helpful because you can have it sent to other people. So this is what we use for notifying people about new reports. We run a notification on the reports document down here, and we say, please send this to Tim and Tony and Sue and John, and the people that need to see that. They'll get that notification email. It'll have a link in for people to go and view that report. So that's nice and easy to set up. The other sorts of notifications we can get are these ones, and these are telling me about tasks, risks and issues that are relevant to me. So this is a little bit more of an involved thing to set up and a little bit more interesting to receive. We set up some rules which allow us to identify particular cases where we want to tell people about things. And I've got some running here for issues. So this is looking for all issues that have a severity of greater than or equal to 5 in this portfolio and are not closed. So it's keeping me up to date. And normally what happens is we have all these rules. It runs through them all once a day on a time schedule, say 8 o'clock in the morning, and then sends emails to people. And they'll get emails, not one email per rule or per instance, but they'll get one email a day with everything that's appropriate for them. So in this case, I'm keeping myself abreast of what's going on with significant issues in the portfolio of interest. I'm also keeping myself up to date with overdue tasks. So these are tasks which are not 100% complete, which are over 1 day due beyond their expected finish date, and are in the project Office Move. So I'm project manager for Office Move. I want to know about tasks that haven't been completed which should have been complete. And it's going to give me some basic information about those. And here I've got some risk notifications running. Any risk with a residual rating of greater than 2 from Office Move again. So it's telling me about those. And in each of these cases, as well as telling me about the particular instance and perhaps a little bit of data, it also gives me again a link. So I can go straight away and see what's going on with that particular item. So this is George's task, and again goes to the browser interface and opens that for me there. So I can see all the latest data about that, whether that's a task, whether it's a risk, and here's our risk information, or whether it's an issue as well. And we've got our issue information. So keeping us in touch with what's going on. And of course what you receive is going to be entirely dependent upon the rules that are set and your interaction with the various data in the projects. So that's all set up from here. Project control notifications. Everybody has their own rules, and most users can only see their own rules. As an administrator, you can go and change and look at other people's rules, because sometimes people will build rules which are very broad. So if I'd have said tell everybody about overdue tasks here, so this overdue one, if I hadn't put in something that narrows it to just one project, it would send emails to everybody who had overdue tasks on every project in the system. Now that might actually be a positive thing. You might want to do some of those sort of things, but you don't want everybody setting up rules to do those things. So as an administrator, you can nip in and perhaps tighten up people's rules, or in fact, of course, pause or switch off people's rules from being active until they've tightened them up themselves. And building these rules is pretty straightforward. You give it a name. This is the text that it sends out in the message. And then these rule elements are just built up from all the different possibilities that you have for the different types. So here we've got rules about tasks. So we've got task date, information, the names of the thing, the project name, the task name, whether it's in a portfolio, content of its description, all those sorts of things, who the resources are, stuff of that type. You apply an operator and a number or a search pattern, etc. And you can compound together as many different rule elements as you want to. So this is the condition that makes the rule. Who are we then going to send it to when we find out about it? Send it to me, or send it to the people assigned to the tasks, or both. Or choose other recipients, send it to somebody else completely. So anything to do with overdue tasks might go to the department manager, whether they are you, the person setting up the rule, or the person assigned to the task. You want them to go to the department manager. So you set that up as well. So actually very, very powerful and really popular part of the system, because it's easy to think about projects from a PMO and a project manager perspective where you're in projects all the time. But many of the people working on projects are really part-time project workers. They've got a day job to do. They're just working on part of a project. And stuff like this helps keep them engaged with what's going on. Reminds them about tasks that are due to start, reminds them 2 days before the task is due to finish that they should be wrapping it up now, keeps them in touch with risks and issues. Perhaps if the risk and issue haven't got any resolution against them after a week, then it tells them that they perhaps, or prompts them they might be doing something. So you can use this in lots of different ways, and these notifications can also be sent to people who have no license for the system at all. So you can send them out to suppliers, contractors, etc. They won't be able to follow the links back in, but they'll be able to receive notification reminding them about something, all driven from whatever you've got in your registers and whatever you've got in your plan. So nice and straightforward. Okay, so that's the end of the tour on emails and notifications. I hope you found that helpful. If you haven't already seen the ones on risks and issues and plans and notifications, I suggest you have a look at that, because there's quite a lot of relevant stuff there, as there is in documents and processes around the sort of document changes that are driving notifications. So hopefully you found that helpful, and I want to see some more of these. Thank you.